Good morning everyone and welcome back. This is class 6, subject social science, chapter number 10 of history, and the name of the chapter is Traders, Kings and Pilgrims. As lecture number 1 from this chapter we have already completed, in which we have done trade and trade routes, who were the traders and which routes they followed. Then we talk about the kingdoms along the coast, in which Mohendos we have completed, and one more kingdom there in western part of India, that was Satavahanas. Then we talk about the Silk Route also, and in that we covered that the Silk Route, most of the kings or the rulers, they wanted to control over the Silk Route so that they could get the benefit of taxes, tributes and different gifts from the traders. And from them, the Kushanas were most popular. They controlled over the Silk Route. So in today's lecture, we'll talk about Kushanas. Then we'll talk about that Buddhism that spread during the time of Kushanas, particularly the famous ruler Kanishk. And then Pilgrims and Bhakti. So this is going to be our lecture number 2. So let's start with the topics. Which topics we are going to cover today are Kushanas. As I told that we'll discuss about Kushanas. They are in the northwest part. Then spread of Buddhism at the time of Kanishk. Kanishk was the most popular ruler of Kushanas. Then Pilgrims will be talking about, Bhakti, and at last we'll take the questions of homework that will be on the basis of the topics covered in today's lecture only. So let's start the topics one by one. The first topic, Kushanas. As I told you that Kushanas, those were there in northwest of India and Central Asia, near about 2000 years ago, and these were the rulers who controlled over the Silk Route and got the benefit from the tribute and taxes from the traders. So let's see about the location of these Kushanas and who was the important ruler there, and also the time period. Kushanas ruled over Central Asia and northwest India around 2000 years ago. So this is the time period when Kushanas developed there in northwest of India and Central Asia. The most famous ruler of Kushanas was Kanishk. He ruled near 1900 years ago there, and he was the most famous ruler of Kushan. Peshawar and Mathura were the two important centers of power of Kushanas. Means, as we have done the important cities there at the time of Mauryan Empire, so during this particular time, Peshawar and Mathura, these were the two main centers of power for Kushanas. If you remember, when we completed Mathura there, when we were doing 9th chapter, in which we have done the different tasks there in the cities. So there we have covered that Mathura was the second capital of Kushanas. So this is here. These were the two important centers of power of Kushanas, Peshawar and Mathura. And third one that was important, it was Takshila. So Takshila was also the part of Kushana's kingdom during that particular time. So this is all about Kushanas that we have covered. Now, as I told you that Buddhism developed during the time of Kanishk, the most important ruler, or most famous ruler of Kushana. Now, what development that happened there? Just have a look on that. Spread of Buddhism at the time of Kanishk. Kanishk organized Buddhist council where different matters were discussed by scholars. So the Buddhist council was organized by Kanishk. the famous ruler of Kushana. And this council, there the different scholars, they discussed on different matters about Buddhism. That was the one that we have seen that how it developed there. The first thing, the Buddhist council was organized by Kanishk. Second, Ashwaghosh was the court poet of Kanishka's court, who wrote the biography of Buddha named Buddha Charita. So Ashwaghosh was a poet there in Kanishka's court, and he wrote the biography of Buddha. Means on the life of Buddha, the biography was written by Ashwaghosh, and its name was Buddha Charita. Clear? Biography means the life story of any person that is written by another person. So this is the life story of Buddha and written by Ashwaghosh, who was the court poet of Kanishk. New form of Buddhism was developed during that time. Means at the time of Kanishka, the new form of Buddhism was developed, and it was known as Mahayana Buddhism. The new form that will discuss which changes were there in this new form. The older form of Buddhism was known as Theravada. The new form that was developed, it was known as Mahayana Buddhism, and the older form of Buddhism that was popular during that time, it was Theravada. So this is the different points how we can say that Buddhism developed during the time of Kanishk. Now we'll see that which changes were made in this new form Mahayana Buddhism. Changes in new form of Buddhism. There were two changes in new form of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism. The first one, statues of Buddha were made now. Actually, in the older form, there were some of the sculptures that were used for worship, like people tree. Okay, as we know that people tree, it was the mark where Buddha got enlightenment under that people tree. So some of the sculptures were used, but now in this new form, statue of Buddha were made, or statues of Buddha were prepared. First change. The second change was belief in bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas were the people who got enlightenment, who got the true knowledge. So second change was that people, the belief there in bodhisattvas, and these people, they could not live the complete isolation now. They were living there in the societies, and they were teaching the different people there about different teachings. So this was the second change, belief in bodhisattvas. Then these bodhisattvas, they became very popular, and they spread throughout the Central Asia, China, and later on in Korea and Japan also. And this Buddhism that spread in even not only in the western side, it spread there in southeastern wards also, like in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and even the parts of southern East Asia, including Indonesia. So these different areas that Buddhism that spread. As in chapter number 7, if you remember, we talk about that Buddhism that was widely spread than Jainism. So the different places it was popular during that particular time. So these were the two changes in new form of Buddhism, that was Mahayana Buddhism, and the different changes or the development at the time of Kanishk. Buddhism spread in Central Asia, China. Later on, it spread in southeastern wards, including Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, etc. As I already told you, that even in the Japan also it spread, in Korea, then some parts of Indonesia in south eastward direction, we can say. So it spread in different areas. Clear? Now the next topic is pilgrim. Now first of all we must know what is the meaning of this word pilgrim. Who are these pilgrims? Pilgrims were the men and women who undertake journeys to holy places in order to offer worship. Means the people, now also we can say the people who go to the holy places for worship, they are known as pilgrims. Clear? So pilgrims meaning what you will write? The people who undertake the journeys to holy places to offer worship to the deities. Deities means the gods. Clear? This is the meaning of pilgrim. Now, famous Chinese Buddhist pilgrims. Now I'll talk here the Buddhist pilgrims, the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims who visited India, and what was the purpose for coming here, that we will discuss. For these Buddhist pilgrims, why did they come here in India? Obviously the Buddhist pilgrims are there, so they came here to learn about the life of Buddha. Now I'll discuss about the famous Chinese Buddhist pilgrims who visited India. First one, it was Fahayan. He came about 1600 years ago from China. Zhuangzhen, he visited in India 1400 years ago. And the third was I King. He came 1350 years ago, means just 50 years after Zhuangzhen. So these were the famous Chinese pilgrims who came to India or who visited India to learn more about the life of Buddha. They were interested in learning life of Buddha and wanted to learn about Buddha, and they also wanted to give that knowledge to the people of their land also. They went back to China with different teachings, different statues of Buddha, different books of Buddha. So this will see here. Now why they came to India, the reasons will see here. Reasons for coming to India for the Chinese pilgrims we are talking here. So why did the Chinese pilgrims they come to India? Number one, they were very much interested in the life of Buddha. That's why they came here. Number two, they visited places associated with the life of Buddha. The places which were associated or which were related to Buddha's life, they visited those places to learn more about the life of Buddha. Number three, they also visited famous monasteries and collected books and statues of Buddha. So they collected different statues and books, that the reason just to learn more and more about Buddha, and even they took these books and statues back to China so that they could teach the people in China also about Buddhism. So these were the reasons why the Chinese pilgrims they came to India. Now our next topic is Nalanda. Nalanda, a place there in Bihar, a unique center of learning Buddhism during that particular time. You can say it was the oldest university of that time, and even it is existing now also. It was destroyed even 2 times. If you study about the history of Nalanda, and it has been started again now. So it is running again as an institute there in Nalanda. So Nalanda, it was the unique center of learning Buddhism during that particular time. And the Chinese pilgrims who visited India, they also visited this Nalanda the center of learning Buddhism. Now let's see some of the features that are described here about Nalanda. Nalanda was the unique center of learning Buddhism when Chinese pilgrims visited the subcontinent. They also spent time studying in Nalanda, Bihar. So the place Nalanda, that is there in Bihar, and during that time it was the unique center of learning for Buddhism, and these Chinese pilgrims also visited that place. Now Zhuangzheng described Nalanda as what description was given by Zhuangzheng about Nalanda. Let's see. First thing, the teachers of Nalanda are the men of highest ability and talented. So according to Zhuangzheng, the teachers of Nalanda were highly talented teachers. Second thing, the rules of monastery are very strict and all have to follow them. The rules those were made there in that institute or that learning center, they were very strict, and the people those were there in the institute, they had to follow all the rules and regulations. Next thing about Nalanda is discussions are held throughout the day and all mutually help each other. It was described that the discussions on different matters, they held there throughout the day, and old and young all mutually help each other there in the different issues or different discussions. Next thing, the gatekeeper asked questions for entrance in Nalanda. Means the people those were coming there in Nalanda, at the entrance, the gatekeeper, they were asking different questions there. People are allowed to enter after answering these questions. Whatever the questions were asked by the gatekeeper, that answers the people who are coming, they had to give. And even it was described by Zhuangzhang that out of every 10, the 7 or 8, they were not able to give the answers of those questions. Means only 2-3 people, those were going there, they were able to give the answer. So these some of the features that are described by Zhuangzheng. Then even it is also described here, Fahayan and Zhuangzheng, how they went back to China. Firstly, if we talk about Fahayan adopted the sea route for going back to China, and on the way even it is described that on the way there was storm and he was going with merchants. The merchants, they started throwing their material there in the sea so that they could save themselves to sink there in the sea. And then Fahayan also started throwing only the belongings, not the books and statues of Buddha, because he wanted to take those things back to China. And Zhuangzheng adopted the land route. It was described that he took different statues of Buddha. Those were made up of gold, silver, sandalwood, and different manuscript, near about 600, and 20 horses. Those were taken by him so that he could load the material, the statues and books on them. So this was described about the Chinese pilgrims and how Zhuangzheng described about Nalanda, the unique center of learning Buddhism. Clear? Our next topic is Bhakti, the devotion. Bhakti comes from the Sanskrit term bhaj, meaning to divine or share. This suggests the two-way relationship between the deity and devotee. Means deity means God, and devotee, the person who is doing bhakti or who is doing devotion, you can say, towards the deity. So this is the simple meaning. We can say that how can we write what is bhakti. We can write here that bhakti as a person's devotion to deity. Okay, so this definition we can write: bhakti is the person's devotion to deity or person's devotion to God or Almighty, to whom the devotee has the devotion. This is bhakti. Now, the idea of bhakti is present in Bhagavad Gita. Now, some features of bhakti we are going to learn here. First, as the meaning we have done. Second, idea of bhakti is present in Bhagavad Gita, the sacred book of Hindus. If you remember, when we see Mahabharata, there we see that Krishna the god asked Arjuna as his devotee and friend, and the different teachings that has been given there in Bhagavad Gita, those were given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. So this is the Bhagavad Gita is the sacred book of Hindus, and idea of bhakti that is present in Bhagavad Gita. Next, we can say about bhakti. Deities who were worshipped through bhakti included Shiva, Vishnu, and goddess Durga. Means these were different god and goddesses. Those were worshipped during that particular time. So the worship of Shiva, Vishnu, and goddess Durga, it was done that time. They were the main deities, and the statue of these they kept there at a sacred place that was known as temple. Now also we can see the temples and different statues of god and goddesses we see here. So that was there also. So these are the features of bhakti. Now bhakti that developed during that time, and even the common people, the ordinary people, they were attracted towards bhakti. So what were the reasons for that attraction? Let's see that also. People attracted to bhakti, and the reasons: ordinary people attracted to bhakti because bhakti saints use the language of ordinary people. As we have done earlier also, that whenever the language that has been understood by the person, if we are using that, obviously the people, they are able to understand that. So the bhakti saints, they used the language of ordinary people. The first reason, that's why the people attracted to bhakti. Second, anyone, whether rich or poor, men or women, high or low caste people, could follow the path of bhakti. If you remember, in Vedic period, we talk about their women or the low caste people, they were not allowed to study those Vedas. Here, what is given there? There was no foundation whether the rich or poor, men or women, or high or low caste people, anyone could follow the path of bhakti. The second reason why the people attracted towards bhakti. Next is the third reason. This path emphasized, or this path lay stress on devotion and individual worship of a god or goddesses, rather than the performance of elaborate sacrifices. In past, in Vedic period, we have seen that sacrifices were performed, but here the people, the individual worship of god or goddesses, they were present rather than the sacrifices. So these were some of the reasons the people attracted to bhakti. So meaning of bhakti, then features of bhakti, then why did the people attract towards the bhakti? Clear? And the next is a poem by a bhakt, that is given there, very simple, in which it is the devotion towards Shiva, it is described here. This part of a poem composed in Tamil by a devotee of Shiva. A leper with rotting limbs, means hands or hands and legs, limbs are the man who is regarded as low by the Brahmin. Even these men, if they are servants of him who shelters the Ganga in his long hair. Here they are describing Shiva, who is holding the Ganga in his long hair. I worship them. So these are some of the lines basically describing the devotion of a devotee towards deity Shiva. They are gods to me. Clear? These are just the line of a poem that a bhakt has spoken here. Now our next topic is Christianity. As we know that in every chapter we take elsewhere, and in that elsewhere we take the happenings that in the other parts of the world during that particular time, that in India these happenings those are going on. So Christianity that was developed there, so we'll talk about Christianity near about 2000 years ago, when Kushanas they were here in India, they were developing. So let's see about the Christianity here. One of the religion it is. Christianity emerged or developed in West Asia about 2000 years ago. Bethlehem was the part of Roman Empire where Jesus Christ was born. The God, you can say God of Christians here. So Jesus Christ was born there in Bethlehem, and it was the part of Roman Empire. He taught the people that treat other with love and affection. Means the treatment with the others, it must be good, then and only we will be treated the same by the others. Holy book of Christians is Bible, that contains the teachings of Jesus Christ. Clear about the Christianity, one of the religion, that the famous religion of the world. So with this small topic our chapter is completed. Now let's see the homework. Do the following questions. Question number 1. What are the main features of bhakti? Question 2 is, discuss the reasons why the Chinese pilgrims came to India. Number 3, write a short note on Nalanda. The points that we have, description we have done, you can write those points here. Number 4, describe the new development and spread of Buddhism during Kanishka's period. So all the points how the Buddhism developed there at the time of the famous ruler of Kushanas, Kanishka. And the fifth question, why do you think ordinary people attracted to bhakti? These all questions you will attempt in your fair register. Clear? Now it's time for the homework solution of lecture number 1. Question 1 was, define movender. Movender, Sangam poem, here S is missing. Sangam poems mentioned movender, which is a Tamil word. Its meaning is 3 chiefs. Used for heads of 3 ruling families in south. They were Cholas, Chera and Pandyas. They became powerful there in South India around 2300 years ago. So this is the definition of movender. Basically the movenders were the 3 heads of 3 ruling families in south, Chola, Chera and Pandyas. Question 2 was, why did kings want to control the Silk Route? Kings wanted to control the Silk Route. This was because they could benefit from tribute, taxes and gifts that were brought by traders. So this is the reason, so that they could benefit from the taxes and tributes brought by traders. That's why they wanted to control over the Silk Route. Question 3. What kind of evidences do historians use to find out about trade and trade route? They collected information about northern black polished ware that was found in different areas. So one of the reason they got that trade was going on. Number 2, historians told that South India was famous for gold, spices, especially black pepper. Black pepper was even highly valued in Roman Empire. The clue that the trade between Roman Empire and subcontinent, it was that historians found evidences of trade in Sangam poem as one of the part of the poem we have also covered in first lecture. Number 4, traders explored several sea routes. Some of these followed sea coasts. So the routes that they used, they followed the sea coast, means they were near the sea coasts. Question number 4, it was discuss the story of silk making and silk route. Story of silk making and silk route. Number 1, silk was highly valued fabric in most of the societies of that time. That was highly valued fabric. Number 2, techniques of making silks were first invented in China near about 7,000 years ago. Then sometimes the Chinese rulers sent gifts of silk to rulers in Iran and then went West Asia. From there, the knowledge of silk spread further west. It was very costly, and the reason behind it, people living along the route often demanded payments from allowing the traders to pass through. So obviously they include that cost to the cost of silk. That's why they were costly. Number 5, in history, best known of the rulers who controlled the silk route were Kushanas. So this question you will be able to learn just like a story. Make a story in sequence, then about first of all its meaning, what was the silk, then it was invented, then from China how it spread in other areas, it was costly, and who controlled over the most of the silk route. So this was the answer for the fourth question. Now that's it for today. Thank you and have a nice day.